Hello all. In this video, I'm going to be explaining trigonometry. Just going to cover the basics, the beginnings for pre-cal. So I'm going to be covering the angles and graphing and how degrees and radians work. So stay tuned. We'll get started. Okay, so the first thing you'll learn in trig is going to be degrees and radians. I'm sure everyone has heard of degrees. Uh, So 300 degrees, seen this in geometry, right? So, but you probably haven't seen radians if you're new to trig, because radians is used in pre-cal and on calculus. So radians is just another way of writing the angle here. So these can be converted from into each other, and then we'll go over how that works. But yeah, so there's just two ways of writing angles. So, so degrees to angles is the first thing because we're familiar with degrees right now. So there's actually a formula that does this. So we're going to start with the angle that we're given. And if you multiply pi over 180, this gives you the radian value for the angle that you're using. So in this case, if you simplify the fractions, you get 5 pi over 3. So 5 pi over 3, in other words, is equivalent to 300. So 45, if you do the same formula, you'll get pi over 4. 180 is pi. 135 is 3 pi over 4. Once you do enough of these, you'll have them memorized, and the goal is to get more familiar with using radians because that's what you're going to be using from now on. Okay, so to go the other way though, from radians to degrees, you would do the opposite. So you start with pi over 6, but you multiply this time with 180 over pi. So earlier it was pi over 180, now you flip it. So the pi's cancel. If you simplify, you get 30 degrees. So pi over 6 is equal to 30 degrees. And you can do the same with the rest. So 3 pi over 4 is going to be 135. And 5 pi over 3, as we saw earlier, was 300. Now, just because there's no pi doesn't mean that it's not radians. Radians is anything without a degree. So it's just any number, really. And people use pi because it's pi is important to trigonometry, but sometimes you're given value like this and you have to convert this to degrees. But you do the exact same thing. So 1.26 times 180 over pi. This time the pi's won't cancel, obviously, because this one doesn't have a pi. So you just divide by pi and the calculator, and it'll give you some number value in degrees. But it won't be a whole number, because I just picked some random radian number. Yeah, so that's how that works. Okay, so next what we're going to do is the graphing, because that's the next thing that you're going to learn. So we just covered angles. Now you have to be able to graph these angles on the xy plane. So the xy plane. And the first thing you need to know are quadrants. If you're not familiar with quadrants, it starts here, first quadrant, second, third, and fourth. So it goes around this way. Alright, so that's how quadrants work. So if somebody were to refer a quadrant, that's how you would do it. So I label it here. Okay, so the next thing to graph it, you should know these four. These four are important, and they're kind of used as points of reference because they're at each corner. So, for example, we know pi over 6 is equal to 30 degrees. If 90 is here and 0 is here, 30 must be somewhere closer to 0, but in between. So 30 degrees would be like right there. 5 pi over 3 is 300 degrees. So where would that be? It would be in the fourth quadrant, in between 270. But this is 0, right? But it's also 360 is another way of writing this, because 360 is all the way around. So 300 would be somewhere here. 300. So this angle, or this 300 actually is measuring from 0 to here, so 300. So here to here would be 60 degrees, right? Because all the way around is 360. So that's how that works. One other thing that's important is called coterminal angle. Coterminal. And you'll hear this one a lot. So let's say we're working with this one again. We said it's 30 degrees, right? So this is 30 degrees. So as we mentioned, this is 360 also. Let's say they told you to graph 390 degrees. You start here. You go all the way around to get to 360. And to get to 390, you need to go 30 degrees more. So you actually end up at the same spot. So we call 390 and 30 coterminal angles. And you can keep adding 360 to get coterminal angle. So for example, this one is 90 degrees. If you go all the way around again, you're just adding 360, so you get 450. Then you add 360 again, and you get, 810? And you can keep going. And they're all the same angle, because it just resets every time you make a full circle. So yeah, this is the intro to angles and trig. We're gonna look at solving trig equations and using these angles to solve problems in the next video.